My name is Markus Olodyn Koskivirta. This is the Hearthstone.fi Monday Night Community Tournament number 17, transmission from the semifinals and final. Welcome to the stream, everybody. We are going to be starting the matches with Drako versus Hirosawa. So it's France versus Russia to begin off with. I'll give the players the get-go. And let's start the matches. If you are unfamiliar with the tournament format or how the games have played out, then I heartily suggest you go to tms.hearthstone.fi. You can find the brackets from there. This is a conquest format, best of 5, where the players can only use the decks once they win. They have to discard the one that won and choose another one to go on with. Since it is a best of 5, we will see 3 decks, all 3 decks of the winner. Either Drako or Hirosawa. And it seems that Drako has got off to a really amazing start. Pointing out the Mech Warper means that unless Hirosawa has a Wrath in his hand, the Mech Warper will be able to accelerate the Spider Tank out. Unfortunately for him, though, the Wrath is in the hand of Hirosawa. Now the options for Drako are a little bit more limited, but giving Enoitron and Mad Scientist are both very good 2-drops at this stage of the game. Looking at Hirosawa's hand, only the Wild Growth really seems to make any sense. Using a Wrath to remove a Mad Scientist is a bit of a waste. And here we see the Spider Tank going down as planned on turn 3. Probably due to the fact that the Tinkertown Technician would have had to been played without the spare parts and the buff, so makes a lot more sense to put out the Spider Tank. We'll probably see the Pilot Shredder come down this turn, unless he values the spare parts highly enough for him to sacrifice the sacrifice the curve from the Pilot Shredder. Both of those minions can attack and trade with the Sludge Belcher, but it's not the most efficient trade in the world, given that he can attack with the Pilot Shredder into, and the hero ability into the 3/5 Sludge Belcher, then remove the 1/2 with the Mad Scientist, so completely understand and agree with the Drako there, not going for the attack. Once again, we have a 3-minute delay, so if you are interested in talking with me and interacting with the chat, feel free to do so. I will be able to see you and your writings with a small 3-minute delay. Any comments on the game itself are also very much welcome. The tournament itself has been running fairly smoothly right now. We see that Drako gets the explosive sheep from his Pilot Shredder. This could either be a really big advantage or something of a hindrance, depending on what he decides to do with the Sludge Belcher. If he uses the Sludge Belcher to clear out Mad Scientist, then the opportunity to use the Explosive Sheep's Death Rattle against Drako's minions is somewhat smaller. And he gets the Mirror Entity from the Mad Scientist, which means basically that he gives Drako a perfect synergy card. Hirosawa making sure that he should have checked for the secret first before playing down the Pilot Shredder. The actions were so fast that I'm fairly certain that he didn't count there being a Mirror Entity to pop up at this turn. This is looking really, really great for Drako. Hirosawa's turn number 7 will be strong with Dr. Boom. We all know how balanced he is right now, but despite the boom, I do believe that Drako has much better chances of making it. If Hirosawa had attacked into the sheep with the 3/5 Taunt Belcher, I believe he would have been in a bit of a better position to handle the situation. The Boombot's pretty much ideal to take care of the Shredder and the 3/1 Spider Tank. He might opt to go for the attack on Dr. Boom, since he doesn't really have any other means of removing it. On the other hand, giving the emergency coolant onto the Dr. Boom is also a fine idea. If you can put down the Enoitron and just hope that the damages from the boom bots do not hit your weaker minions. It's a more consistent, more reliable play to remove the 7/7 with the 1 hit point minions. This way, the opposing player will have to commit his boom bots into something else, hope that it hits the remaining minion for the damage required. And he also gets the perfect curve with the Spider Tank combined into the Tinkertown Technician. Now the emergency coolant and armor plating are going to come into play with the Archmage Antonidas, probably on turn 9, I would presume. And he wants to hold on to them until then. Turn 7 is looking strong, Lucky Mirror Entity and Iotron into hero ability. Unless there's a really good, strong draw from the deck. This just shows how consistent Mech Mage really is in the current meta. An aggressive alternative, which can still hold its own with the Archmage Antonidas finisher. With the swipe in hand, though, Hirosawa might be able to clear out the board some more, given that he can swipe out either the Spider Tank or the Tinkertown Technician. My choice would be to take out the Tinkertown Technician, since the stats on the Technician are straight up better, and if by some miracle the Technician still stays alive, which it seems to be staying alive as, then Drako would have less. Yes, he would have 1 less attack value, so let's see if that's a really big impact on the game or not. Now, to trade with the Tinkertown Technician to the Paladin Shredder would mean that you would get to see the 2-drop before you play anything else. On the other hand, you could just drop the Azure Drake that you got right now, see what you draw from it. Pop the Aniotron down to the board to protect your own fortune and go for the aggressive choice. Because if you're Drako right now, you see that Hirosawa only has 2 cards in his hand. That's a very limited pool of removal available to them as well. Given that 1 swipe is out, both the rats are out. Hirosawa does run the combo though. I'm sure Drako has done his calculations whether or not that's lethal. And he decides to go with the Drake into an Iotron draw. Or an Iotron drop, sorry about that. The Clockwork Gnome is also fairly insignificant, so to pop the Aniotron over it is no surprise. Hirosawa does draw into the combo itself, so let's see if he decides to use it this turn already. There's really no other way to draw cards. Given the Paladin Shredder on the board would mean that he could be able to clear out the Aniotron with just the Force of Nature itself. He doesn't have to commit the combo into it. He could also just silence it with a Keeper, which might be the stronger option here, and go for the higher trade with the Paladin Shredder into the Ezra Drake. Because if you're Hirosawa, you're looking to stabilize the board. You're playing against an aggressive player, an aggressive deck, which is the Mech Mage. If you're able to turn the board advantage onto your side, the game should be the Druids. So we'll have to wait and see what he decides to do. Taking out the Divine Shield with the hero power basically means that he's not going to be using the silence on the taunt, and decides to actually utilize the Keeper of the Grove's damage to put down the already damaged Tinkertown Technician. This might buy him a little bit more time, and as I predicted, the Archmage will not be used on turn 7 or 8. This is a pretty much perfect turn 9 for him, just waiting to happen. And the Mirror Entity should provide plenty more aggression. For Hirosawa, though, the only option of playing a minion right now is Harrison Jones, and that would not be a nice thing to have mirrored. So I'm pretty sure we will see the Force of Nature Roar combo this turn. It might be a counterspell, though, given the fact that some Mech Mages have gone a bit against the meta in this current mode. So maybe he's afraid of the counterspell, which would ruin the Force of Nature combo completely. If he were to just use the plain Force of Nature, he would be left with 4 mana, which is just a hero ability. You could use that to clear out the Clockwork Gnome, Force of Nature out the 4/2. Just playing the Harrison Jones might not be a bad idea, even if there is the Mirror Entity, because of the fact that your board isn't really that great to use the combo on. And he can then clear out the 5/4 with his own Paladin Shredder. And we see that happen. Getting Mike Warper from the Shredder is not that bad. It's a 2/3 stats for 2 mana, basically pretty much exactly what you can expect to get from there. The only downside to playing Patterson is the fact that both of the existing minions will very, very nicely get rid of him already. We're gonna see Archmage, but do we see reversing armor plating or coolant? He'll probably use the coolant on Harrison, remove the mech warper with the existing shredder, and then possibly... No, there's no point in reverse switching either one of your minions. Maybe using the armor plating, yep, to boost the shredder so that it's not within hero power range. Makes it much more useful. Now, okay, Hirosawa drawing into a second Force of Nature is really, really unfortunate right now. His hand is really clunky. There's nothing he can do. There's only one thing. You can either delay for one turn by just playing the Force of Nature, trying to clear these existing minions, but there's nothing you can do about the Argentinitis unless you play the Savage Roar with it.
Well played.
Yep, and now he sees it. There's no way to turn this game around with the fireballs he already knows exists. The first game goes to Drako. It is now 1 mage less for Drako 1-0. Now the options available to Hirosawa are obviously the Druid. I know Drako runs Mage, Paladin, and Druid, so he might be facing either Druid or Paladin. We'll have to wait and see which one Drako picked. Alright, so it's Paladin versus Paladin. Pretty much guaranteed to be a mirror match. Both of these players probably using Quartermaster combos, as the mid-range Paladins usually do. And we're gonna go ahead and enable Hirosawa as well. There we go. And we can see the Quartermaster in his starting hand. The Paladin Shredder, Coin, Muster, maybe pretty much equal as starting hands go, given the fact that Drako has the earlier game shielded minibot, which is slightly better than just the reinforcement, actually quite a lot better. But the curve for Hirosawa is maybe a bit more decent and consistent, since he can turn 3 muster for battle, or even coin muster and hope for a better card to play on turn 3, but the reinforcement is a more consistent play, less risky. Now Draco's turn is pretty awful. You have to waste 1 mana and you're only left with a Silver Hand Recruit. This bodes well for Hirosawa. Him playing out either the Muster or the Coined Out Shredder are both pretty equally good measures. I personally maybe could have gone for the Muster for battle, given the fact that he could have cleared the existing 1-1 minion with the weapon, and then used his own 1-1 to take out the Divine Shield. He would have been left with 3 1-1 minions, and the opposing player would have only had the shielded minibots without the Divine Shield. Given the fact that on turn 4, the Paladins can play the True Silver Champions or the Consecrations. If he had used the Consecration on just the 3 1-1s, that would have been a win for him, because that's 1 card for 1 card, essentially. Now that he drops the True Silver Champion, it's the perfect answer to both of these Paladin Shredders in Hirosawa's arsenal. Even getting a 3-2 from the Shredder that he can just demolish straight away with the shielded minibot is a bit unlucky. If he decides to go for the Muster on this turn, it is actually a much better response for the True Silver Champion over the Paladin Shredder, giving the weapon a bit less value, but it also wastes 1 mana. So Hirosawa opts to go for the Paladin Shredder, just to conserve the mana amounts in the right amount. On turn 5, Drako probably not going to use the anti-kill bot yet. Going for the Paladin Shredder mode. This is not too bad, given that he does have the Quartermaster there waiting for the Muster to be able to be activated. This 2-3 is not a threat for the Paladin Shredder. Gives you much more aggression than the anti-kill bot. And it would have wasted 2 health from the Battle Cry, so... that you have that going for it. Peacekeepering down the Paladin Shredder means that you can safely attack it with the River Crocolisk, or just take out the Silver Hand Recruit. Yep, for consistency against the Quartermaster. Now that you drew into the other Muster for Battle, though, we're gonna likely see it being played with just a hero ability. There's very little point in playing Consecration right now. You could only get rid of one Death Rattle and one hero power. Combine that with an older Peacekeeper, not enough value. The existing minions will decide to go face. Essentially forcing the opposing player to use the Peacekeeper on the Shredder to activate the Consecration. This board right here, this is much better value for the Consecration use than just those 3/1/1s I was talking to you guys previously. This might force Drako to actually use his own Consecration, but I don't see there being such a big threat that he has to do it. He could also opt to go for the Sludge Belcher hero ability play to make way for the Muster for Battle Quartermaster on turn 8. If that 1/1 were to stay alive, with the help of the 1/2 taunt, then you would have a nice row of 4 minions just waiting for the Quartermaster's buffs. You do get the same effect essentially with the Consecration though. It's only sort of wastes 1 mana crystal, but you don't give the opposing player the chance to get good value from the minions by trading into the Sludge Belcher efficiently. I understand why he chose to play the Consecration when he did.
Let me think.
Hirosawa being stuck with 2 equalities against a board which is likely going to be all 1/1. It's not that great. If he were to draw into the Pyromancer, that would probably give him more options.
Reporting for duty.
Gonna go ahead and set the broadcast title to be correct. Unfortunately, currently I cannot see the Twitch chat, but maybe there is something going on, I'm just missing it.
Let me think. Reporting for duty. To arms, men!
And just as I said it, I can see it actually working. Thank you to Get Butter for watching. As I predicted, he decided to play down the Muster plus Quartermaster, using the 1 available Silverhand Recruit as the attack for the Sludge Belcher, then passing out the turn.
Let me think.
Drawing Dr. Boom is essentially the only reason why you would not play Tyrion for during this turn. The other reason being that you could actually see the opposing player clear out Tyrion. But to get Tyrion traded into essentially 3 fairly buffed minions, it's not that bad. You would get the Ashbringer, you're not holding onto any other weapons. It would basically mean that the Muster for Battle though would be pretty useless though, so I understand the decision behind this one pretty well. Getting pretty lucky boom bots there, hitting the exact targets. The only better chance would have been to hit the Quartermaster for 4. But on the other hand, it's less attack value when the Quartermaster stays alive. Drako deciding to go for the Tyrion. I don't think there's anything else except maybe a silence that would really ruin Draco's day. And as we can see, there is no silence in the hand of Hirosawa. He might go for the equality into Muster for Battle, which would enable him to remove Tyrion with the hero attack, but that is 6 damage to the face. And Draco's deck runs the more aggressive version with Knife Jugglers as well, which is an interesting choice, seeing that Knife Jugglers and Healbot is in the same deck. What are Hirosawa's options right now? If he were to just go Peacekeeper on the Tyrion attack with Dr. Boom and maybe use Muster for Battle as well to clear out the Divine Shield, I think that would be the most optimal right now. He gets 3 mana free as well. Doesn't have to waste any mechanics. Opting to go for the 6 face damage first, without using the Peacekeeper, just so he can activate Quartermaster on the already existing Silverhand Recruits. Not a bad option. This gives you great board presence, but it also makes you vulnerable to an Equality Consecration or an Equality Pyromancer combo, which he already knows is an option. given that he runs them himself as well. If we see an Aldor Peacekeeper, we're gonna see it on the Dr. Boom. Nope, he's gonna opt to go for the reinforcement, hope that the Knife Juggler does his thing. Unfortunately, it doesn't, so he's forced to attack with the Quartermaster into the 7-1. Trade it out. If the Juggler had, in fact, hit the 7-1, I don't know if he'd used the Quartermaster to attack face. More than likely, yeah. And yes, if you are just tuning in, it is indeed semifinal number 1 of the Hearthstone.fi Monday Night Community Tournament number 17. We're facing Emperor Drako versus Hirosawa. This is Russia versus France. Forcing the Sludge Belcher down to 1 attack means that your own minions do not die when you are attacking against it. Not a bad decision. Denying a lot of value from the Sludge Belcher there. And getting a really nice knife there. Hitting the one target that you wanted it to hit. He'll be able to trade the 3-1, which just got hit, into the 3-2. The one thing that he doesn't want to see right now is probably Consecration or some form of AoE from Drako, but as we can see Draco's hand, we know that he doesn't have the required answers. It's looking pretty bad. He's down to 15 hit points. The board already has 16 on it, so he is forced to be reactive, so to speak, try to clear the board in as much efficiency as possible. Having to use a Peacekeeper on just a 3 attack minion has always been painful, but we're probably going to see that pay off in the fact that he doesn't get killed this turn. If he had used the Ashbringer to clear out the Peacekeeper, it wouldn't have gotten museumed. And this way Harrison Jones gets amazing value. The biggest weapon you can get out from the Paladin has been used, drawing a card as well. The Zombie Chow, a bit of a 2-bladed edge there because of the fact that if he plays it right now, it might enable Drako to pop back up. But on the other hand, there's no reason not to hold it, or not to play it, excuse me. So he's gonna just pop it down. Even if the AoE does clear things out, the Zombie Chow is not a big thing to miss. There's nothing to silence. Even though Harrison trades well into Sylvanas, it's really the only option you have. Drako just trying to get as much cards as possible to eke out the game. Hirosawa does really have the option of just going face. Drop Tyrion, go face. Hope that Sylvanas, when she pops, doesn't take the Tyrion. On the other hand, you could just go destroy everything with the Equality Consecration combo. You would lose one of your existing minions and not risk the Tyrion being taken. But when you have a full board, it's just 1 in 7 for him to get it. So we are gonna see the full-on aggression from Hirosawa, which I predicted earlier. Now, in order for this game to turn around, he would have to either get the taunted Tyrion from Sylvanas, which he now basically made moot, or draw into a very large taunt himself. Oh, and there we go, it took the Tyrion, so if he'd gotten the Tyrion, he might have gotten away with it for one more turn. Situation is now 1-1. Hirosawa's Paladin taking away the win from Drako. That is 1-1. 1 for Paladin on Hirosawa's side and 1 for Mage on Draco's side. So Mage can, Drako can either choose to go for the Paladin once again or pick out his Druid. Hirosawa's choice of Paladin paid off. We'll have to wait in anticipation about his future picks. We're going to go ahead and spectate Hirosawa this time. We've seen enough of Draco's view of the board.
Jane versus Uther. I will fight with honor.
You asked for it.
Activating the spectator mode for both sides. This is a freeze mage. That's actually something that is pretty uncommon these days, especially in this format, given that Conquest is a more active format, where you think about it. A Freeze Mage is pretty much always an answer deck. It's not a deck that you would bring into a matchup considering it to be favorable in most matchups. It's definitely designed to counter specific types of decks. And in this format, the opposing player doesn't play the deck that he just won with. He plays a completely different deck, which makes the Freeze Mage's responsiveness a fairly major downside, actually. I'll have to wait and see if Hirosawa prevails despite that. At 3 mana, the Muster for Battle is pretty much a no-brainer. Remove the opposing player's Thalnos. Keep the aggression going. Hirosawa does have the Ice Block. You can opt to go for that. Or the Ice Barrier. Both are fairly okay delay mechanics. Maybe the Barrier is more consistent in this situation. No Frost Nova to go with the Doomsayer. Playing the Explosive Sheep is not available right now without the Fire Blast. You could also play the Sheep, coin out the Fire Blast. But then the opposing player would be still left with the Shielded Minibot. And that's not an optimal situation to be in. Using your Explosive Sheep to just counter a single core Muster for Battle. Not great. Now, playing just the hero ability is really, really smart. Given that you haven't seen what kind of mage the opposing player's mage is. They might well have good board clears. Just playing the Arcane Intellect is actually quite interesting, given that you weren't in a bad position for cards. And those secrets might really be too little too late if the game starts to get going properly. But that Explosive Sheep pretty much a necessity from Hirosawa, given the fact that the opposing player would have had the ability to play the Quartermaster on turn 5 for just 4 targets. Or for 4 targets altogether, which is actually very significant, giving it +8/+8 onto the board. Even a second Doomsayer is useless when you don't have the Frost Nova. So, Hirosawa wants to delay the game. We'll probably see Mad Scientist into one of the secrets, or maybe even Loot Hoarder and Mad Scientist. There's really no reason to use the Frostbolt on the 2/2. Yep. Scientist, Loot Hoarder, coin up a Doomsayer. Alright, forcing the opposing player to respond to the Doomsayer. Not a bad call, given that he has to use all of the damage available on the board to kill off the Doomsayer to delay the game. And you already have one Doomsayer on your side. Which pretty much makes sure that the Loot Hoarder and the Mad Scientist stay alive. Except for the fact that Drako, of course, has the Consecration in his hand. And can also use the Quartermaster to buff up his Silver Hand recruits significantly. In my opinion, he should definitely use the Quartermaster right now. There are still 4 minions. 4 minions left on the board for him to activate on. You're unlikely to get a better situation than this for the Quartermaster's Battlecry, especially given that you've already used both Musters.
Let me think.
It gives you the ability to remove the Doomsayer with 2 minions and the hero ability, and then just using these other 2 existing Silverhand recruits to take out the damage from the Scientist and the Loot Hoarder. Maybe even consider trading the Shielded Minibot. What? What? Opting to go for the Extreme Aggression. Leaving the Frost Mage at 4 hit points though. That might be a really, really significant mistake in their endgame, because of the fact that they can just Ice Block, Acolyte, keep the damage off of themselves for long enough for them to be able to draw into maybe Alexstrasza. Their ways of ending the game. That was a very, very significant amount of board presence they just lost. And the only threat that turn 6 would have provided from a Freeze Mage, normally, would have been maybe a Blizzard, a second Doomsayer into a Frost Nova. That's all. Basically all you had to do was take out 7 damage, and there's the Blizzard, it was a little bit late. Let's take out the 7 damage from all of your existing minions. destroy that one Doomsayer and still be left with a significant amount of damage on the board. This made the game for Hirosawa manageable. He wants to end the game early, I get that. I get why Drako played it, but I would even blame that on the nerves. If he weren't as experienced a player as he is. Basically, those two Ice Barriers now enabling Hirosawa to get back up to what? It's 18 hit points without even using his Alexstrasza, which quite likely is in the deck. And what does Drako have left on the board? A single Sylvanas, which has been frostbolted and will be removed with the hero power next turn, or even with a Blizzard. That is definitely one of the most significant things to see out here right now. Hirosawa is opting to go out for the Doomsayer proc from the Mind Control. Not a bad choice. It does destroy 2 minions, which are, well, smallish. So maybe there could have been more value out of the Doomsayer. If they had just played the Blizzard, it would have effectively done the same thing. Frozen down the minion, given them options to work towards the future. It might be that Hirosawa doesn't run any Frost Novas. But I think I saw a Frost Nova in the starting hand, so that's not the case there. Using Blizzard and then Hero ability to clear out the... Oh, not clear out the minion. I would have expected them to clear out the Mind Control tech, because then you would have had the ability to use your hero power next turn to take out the Polished Raider, maybe respond to the answer with a Frostbolt. There's the Alexstrasza. On the other hand, if you're going to be using Blizzard anyway, it will clear out both of these minions, so it doesn't matter where you use your hero ability at. The Alexstrasza is going to be significant. You have to use it on the opposing player. It's one of those win conditions. But if it is a Olodyn, you might be faced with double anti-heal bots, or more than likely just one and a lay on hands. There's really no point in using the Alexstrasza on yourself right now. The opposing player basically made it so that you now have the initiative to end the game.
I've got the beast in my sight.
Even though the Alex gets BGH'd, it might not be that big of a deal. Because the fact that you do have the Ice Block up there, you have a second Ice Block in your hand, the opposing player is at 15 hit points, you can just chuck those fireballs out there, maybe even consider using a Blizzard to freeze down the board. There's really no reason to freeze down the board, you just double fireball into the Frostball and end the game right there. Yeah, that was, I hope you agree with me that was pretty painful to watch. This game was Drako's to win, and his to lose, and he definitely made a mistake in not clearing out that Doomsayer. I can see that the chat is reacting to it as well as I would have expected. But that's it, that's the nature of the game. You make a small mistake and it ends up costing you the whole game. Hirosawa able to eke out the 2-1 win from there. We'll wait for the 4th match to begin. And there we go. Let's stay with Hirosawa. He is the winning player after all.
Malfurion versus Malfurion.
It's a Druid mirror matchup.
Protect the one. Nature will rise against you.
And Drako's starting hand doesn't look too bad, given that he has a Wild Growth in his hand. Hirosawa's starting hand, on the other hand, definitely we will see Harrison and Sylvanas get taken out. And he decides to throw out his whole hand. Gets double Innervate. That's a very, very good combo to get. But on the other hand, only has a combo in his hand. So these Innervates and that coin will be absolutely useless unless you draw into something usable. And that's not usable. The Force of Nature number 2 in their hand. making life a bit difficult. The fact that Drako has a basic mech warper in his druid deck makes me believe that there are other mechs in there as well. Because by itself, this is a bit of an odd choice to add to your deck. Deciding to innervate, coin out the only minion you have in your hand, literally only, that is Harrison. It isn't a bad play, but if you're a druid, you want to see a druid of the claw or pretty much anything else over the Harrison Jones in the 5 slot being played. The Shade of Noxrama is definitely a very good choice there. Able to start growing, especially when you're running double combo. It's one of those reliable cards you just want to have on your board as soon as possible. And innervating out the Ancient of Lore, a very, very strong turn for Drako. Thinking about turn 6, the Pilot of the Sky Golem over the Sylvanas is the more aggressive option. You might see that play. Hirosawa is completely drawing dead. The Wild Growth on this turn, pretty much doing nothing. Forcing Hirosawa to just hero power, hope for a better draw. If the Shade of Noxdramas is allowed to be just growing for the few oncoming turns, we might see a pretty early lethal with the Force of Nature Savage Roar combo. You might even go for a pure Force of Nature this turn. If he uses the Force of Nature to just clear out the Pilot Sky Golem and maybe do 2 damage to the face, it's an option. To use Swipe onto the Sky Golem would be even better in my opinion. You could see the summon from the Sky Golem first. Might end up being something significant.
I wonder.
This is a tough choice. If you use the Innervate to take out the first combo, then you're just basically hoping to draw into a second Savage Roar. You could only eke out
Time waits for no one.
14 plus 7, so that's 21 damage. You want to use the Force of Nature this turn to clear out the opposing minions, and you do get the Cult Master clear as well. So that's a very, very efficient and nice Force of Nature. Not attacking with the Shade is, of course, the correct play here, because of the fact that the Ancient Lore would be able to just trade out into it. Building the board to be a much bigger of a threat for the actual combo is very understandable. It's unlikely that Drako would be able to push out lethal this turn, because even if he had the combo Innervate out, he would only have 21 damage, which will leave Hirosawa at 2. Probably gonna see Shade into Swipe on this turn. Or maybe just Shade. If he were to swipe the 5/5 and use Hero ability, that would actually mean pretty little. Might take him out of lethal. No, it wouldn't take him out of lethal range either. He would push himself down to 13. If you're Hirosawa right now, you're playing to win and not survive, because of the fact that the opposing druid does have the combo in his hand. And if he has the combo and you don't have the taunts, there's no way for you to clear the board enough, because even if you kill off one of these ancients, even if you use the swipe and the hero ability, you're still at 13 hit points, and that combo just kills you outright. So the go for the win play here would probably be Shade of Naxxramas and swipe to the face,
Time waits for
because
no
that swipe to the face pushes the opposing player to 25. Nope, we're gonna see the swipe hero ability, which means unfortunately that Hirosawa will lose the game. He's exactly 14. Drako has the necessary amount of damage in his hand already. And it is GG. Force of Nature, Innervate, Savage Roar, and the game is over. It is 2-2. We are gonna go into the deciding match. Drako has won with his mage and his druid. This means the paladin is left. He will be playing paladin. Hirosawa only has his druid. So we will be seeing a druid versus paladin. That game could have gone completely differently. Maybe the starting hand of Hirosawa was to blame. Maybe it wasn't. If you are playing a double combo druid, that is one of the worst possible starting hands to get. There's absolutely nothing for you to play on the early game and the opposing player gets presence. That's what happens. Let's see here. Did the players already go? And start the match? Nope, they didn't. It is completely understandable for them to take a small break between matches to maybe drink some water, have a bit of a pause to think about life. Thus far, it has been a really enjoyable tournament to run and a tournament to cast. This is my first week of casting these matches. We are hoping we can get the Blizzard World Championship status. So that's why we are making the casts and the VODs available to you right there, our precious audience. I have been hoping that we get the World Championship status. There should be nothing to stop us from doing it, so here's crossing my fingers for it to happen. And the game has already started. We're gonna go ahead and pick Hirosawa's druid. And see the druid versus paladin in action.
Fight with honor. I must protect the wild.
The mulligans have probably already happened. Yep, for Drako it is already true. He has mulligan down pretty much everything. Hirosawa deciding to keep the Innervate, of course, with the Shade in his hand already. He might even opt to go for not innervating Shade of Naxxramas. We'll have to wait and see what he draws into, because if you innervate out the Shade of Naxxramas on turn 1, you have absolutely nothing to play for the following turns. So just coining out the Shade on turn 2 and then innervating out one of the 5 drops on turn 3 is a much more efficient play. And he does do it. Drako's turn 3, on the other hand, more than likely going to be a muster.
What to do?
The coin innervate for the turn 5 play on this turn is... it's not bad either. It is giving you the 5 mana presence on the board, but the one downside it does have is the fact that your Shade now gets 1 less turn to grow, so if that 1 damage ends up being significant, who knows? You could Savage Roar just your own 1/4 Azure, but that makes very little sense. Using the Azure Drake just to clear out the Divine Shield makes for a much better play. Although it does enable the Shielded Minibot to go for the trade, it does enable Hirosawa to use his Shapeshift in return. That is the reason why Drako decides to waste 1 damage, so to speak, there. We're probably going to see the Keeper of the Grove go for 2 damage onto the 3/2. Clear out the board somewhat. The only downside there being the fact that the Pod Shredder can now efficiently trade into the Keeper. Do you or do you not attack with the Shade? If you're running a double combo deck like Hero, you probably don't want to do that because of the fact that the Shade has so much value in the late game. The Paladin only has Equality Consecration or Equality Pyromancer to deal with it, and neither player has seen any Pyromancers in the opposing player's deck, so it's unlikely that they actually have them. And he does decide to go for it. Excuse me for that brief moment of silence. I was actually reading the chat. And you guys did get it right.
Reporting for duty.
The draw was really deciding in the last match. One of those downsides of taking out the shade from the stealth itself. Like you can see, even a muster, any sort of weapon is enough to clear it out. The paladin does not run any charging minions, so that would not have been a threat. But the muster, exactly, muster and the Trucive champion both were significant. Everything that the opposing Sludge Belcher puts out, pretty easily handled by Drako. This is looking really good for Drako right now. These two wild growths for Hirosawa, not very significant. Just the time of the game where you don't want the wild growths is the turns 5 to 8. If you play one of them, it doesn't provide a significant enough amount of acceleration for you to really benefit from it. Denies you from playing one of these guys anyway. And on turn 10 they are at least card draw, so pretty much once again the worst possible card, or the worst possible hand for Hirosawa in this situation. The Sylvanas does give some of it back, but the proc from the mind control will probably be delayed at least 2 turns, given the fact that Drako is holding on to the Sludge Belcher on the board right now. Oh, Drako wants to activate the mind control right now. To just take a 1-1. Another alternative to Drako's play would have been to just go for the face and let the Sylvanas survive. Yeah, I don't know about that play either. If you have board presence yourself, you're forcing the opposing player to make the decisions. There was no real reason for him to force that mind control out yet. Because of the fact that the biggest minion they could have gotten anyway, if they had just played out maybe the Shield Minibot Aldor Peacekeeper, would have been a 3-3 from the MC that was oncoming. Trucive with championing and using one of those 1-1s to clear out the 5-5 is not a bad play. And this Black Knight will actually get really amazing value once the Sludge Belcher or the Taunted Druid of the Claw come out.
Let me think.
These are not easy decisions to make. You could save 4 damage from your face if you use the Aldor Peacekeeper. That way you're that much further away from being comboed if one of your taunt walls falls or what have you happens. Something unexpected. Oh, well, what a timely Harrison Jones there. Destroying one of the Trucive champion charges. Pretty much the best thing you can do right now. Hoping for that draw to be something useful. Maybe a 5-drop you could innervate into. But even if it's not a 5-drop you can innervate into, you can always just use the existing Belcher. The Belcher is very strong against this board. Unfortunately for Hirosawa though, the Black Knight is in there, just waiting to be played. He's gonna Aldor down the 5-4. This is probably one of the biggest minions in the Druid deck that you can use the Aldor on. Except for Dr. Boom, of course, which we all know should probably be in the deck. And if Drako opts to go for the 1-1s as removal instead of a 2-2, that's only because of the fact that he's afraid of a swipe taking out the board and the Divine Shield being much more useful against it. Given that he doesn't have the Quartermaster in his hand right now, I don't blame him for using the 1-1s out. The Harrison itself doesn't really do much. Maybe playing Cenarius down with those double taunts. That would provide him with pretty significant board presence, but then you do not remove the opposing player's slime. On the other hand, that's not a target that's worth losing a turn with Cenarius for. If you use just Force of Nature into Savage Roar on this turn, you're efficiently just clearing the board. But the board clear, it's not that great. You're forcing yourself to use minions as removal against targets that are not high value. The 4-2s have to be wasted on the shielded minibot, even if you use the hero power to take care of the Divine Shield. And even then you're left with the Black Knight on the board. So I honestly do think that playing the combo this turn, just for clearing the board, is a mistake, because the fact that Draco's deck doesn't provide enough threats to really make any difference. The existing amount of damage on the board was 12, and you were at 16, I believe. So, yes, maybe, if the opposing player had had the second True Silver Champion, it would have been fatal. But for that, you would have had the Cenarius' 2/2 taunts that should have been able to deal with any of those upcoming threats. And if those taunts or Cenarius itself had lived through that, then the combo would have been that much more efficient on the upcoming turns. Now Cenarius, it's a good play, but you waste 1 mana. The potential for double Druid of the Claw on turn 10 for more board protection. All of these options would have been better for you to play on. So, maybe a small misplay there by Hirosawa. There we go, clearing out the 2/2s with his single Consecration. Opting not to play down the Dr. Boom, which basically just makes the game very easy to predict. Had he played down the Cenarius 1 turn earlier, Hirosawa had maybe 1 more turn in him in that match. But I don't see a way for him to come out of that. Oh, well, maybe there is a chance. If he had played the Cenarius with the taunts 1 turn earlier into double Druid of the Claw for the next turn, 12 more hit points. Yep, it's a chance he would have made it. But as it stands, our winner from the first semifinal is Empire Drako with the mid-range Paladin, which was maybe just a little bit favored against the Druid in this matchup.